Okay, so this was a bad day for the Liberals. It was a bad day for the mainstream media, and it was a bad day for their election campaign.
Mark Carney and the Liberals had possibly the worst day of the electoral campaign yet. President Trump's much anticipated Tariff Liberation Day, which was hyped up as the end of Canada by mainstream media, resulted in exactly 0 new tariffs being added to Canada. And this may signal a complete change in momentum for the election.
Let's take a look. From the National Post. Canada spared new tariffs as Trump hits China, Europe. Carney says Canadians still impacted.
Ottawa. After weeks of anticipation, Canada was spared from additional U.S. tariffs on Wednesday as President Donald Trump unveiled sweeping new border levies on imports to the U.S. from dozens of countries on what the president has called, quote-unquote, Liberation Day. Speaking in the White House Rose Garden, Trump announced he was implementing country-specific tariffs ranging from 10% to 49% in response to what he said were unfair monetary and non-monetary tariffs against U.S. goods. Quote, USMCA-compliant goods will continue to see a 0% tariff. Non-USMCA-compliant goods will see a 25% tariff, and non-USMCA compliant energy and potash will see a 10% tariff, end quote, read the fact sheet published earlier this month by the White House. Last week, Trump announced 25% tariffs on all auto imports, though that also included a carve-out for vehicles and parts covered by CUSMA. Trump also confirmed his administration would begin collecting those tariffs at 12:01 a.m. Thursday. In a brief reaction after Trump's announcement, Prime Minister Mark Carney promised that Canada would respond to the incoming auto tariffs in coming days. He also said that the latest round of global U.S. tariffs would still indirectly impact Canada's economy and, quote, millions of Canadians, end quote. Quote, President Trump has just announced a series of measures that are going to fundamentally change the international trading system, end quote, he said before chairing a meeting of the Canada-U.S. Relations Cabinet Committee. Quote, there's going to be an impact on the U.S. economy, which will build with time, in our judgment. It will be negative on the U.S. economy. That will have an impact on us, end quote, he added. The Prime Minister said he would meet with the premiers on Thursday to discuss next steps, including Canada's response to the auto tariffs.
Okay, so this was a bad day for the Liberals. It was a bad day for the mainstream media, and it was a bad day for their election campaign.
And that's because it was a good day for Canadians.
Yeah, funny that. So why was it a bad day? Okay, well, weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was a while, we were talking about what these tariffs might do and what President Trump might do if he was playing chess. So I don't know if he was playing chess or his staff was playing chess, probably the latter. But I think today's announcement was a direct result of his staff ribbing him in the ribs, saying, Mr. Trump, get out of the Canadian election, get out of it right now, because we need a conservative government in there. So the media and Mark Carney and the Liberals have been hyping this up like, oh my goodness, Trump is the evil bad man and he's going to be coming for Canada. He's coming to get you and he's going to be bringing more tariffs and he's going to destroy us. You just wait on April 2nd. It's going to be the end. And nothing happened.
Well, much of Mark Carney and the Liberals' campaign so far has been built on hatred towards Donald Trump. Not love for Canada, but hatred for Trump and the tariffs. I mean, we showed a chart last week, I believe it was from Abacus, that had asked the question, what is your primary concern? And 45% of women over the age of, I think it was 60, had said that Donald Trump and tariffs in the U.S. are the primary concern. And this is what the Liberals have built their campaign around. So now that these tariffs aren't coming, what are the Liberals going to campaign on?
Well, this is the thing, because what the Liberals are going to try to do is they're going to try to drag this out. Mark Carney's already started. Oh, well, just because we didn't get all these massive tariffs doesn't mean we're going to be, spared from this. It's going to impact us eventually. And, they're changing this. And so, but what's probably going to happen is, because Donald Trump is going to be exiting stage left, at least we hope, in terms of the rest of the election, that top concern for Canadians is going to change.
Well, and this is kind of what you've predicted, that Trump would pull the rug out from under the Liberals by saying, okay, no more tariffs. And now what are they going to campaign on?
Well, and to be clear, there is still tariffs applied to Canada. And what Mark Carney is trying to do, and what the mainstream media is trying to do, rather unethically, might I add, is convince Canadians that tariffs were still coming. And, we're being hit by these auto tariffs. But we just showed you that in regards to the auto tariffs, there's a big carve out for all of these goods that are part of CUSMA. And that's the majority of the parts that are going back and forth.
Well, and we spoke about this with Candace Malcolm last week on Juno News, and she even called it fake news. Like, that's how badly that these auto tariffs are going to affect Canada. That is to say, not very much at all.
Right, because most of these companies, if not all of them, are US based. So typically what will happen is they will build a part in the US and they will send it up to Canada. That is going to be exempt because it originated in the US. And then the Canadians will do something to that part and then send it back. But because that part originated in the US, it's going to be mostly exempt. So that's what's going to happen here. So when they say, well, all these auto workers, hundreds of thousands of auto workers are going to lose their jobs, probably not. Why? Because the tariffs aren't really going to be impacting them. So this is kind of a nothing burger in terms of a tariff. Now, you'll see mainstream media videos on YouTube and other platforms. They don't say that in their headlines. They're just saying Trump slaps 10% tariffs on. Not Canada. Or more tariffs are coming from Trump. Not Canada. But they don't say that in the title, but they want you to think that that's what's happening. And this has been the most reprehensible and just dishonest display of our unbiased media, that's the mainstream media, that I've ever seen. So the impact of this is you're going to have less talk about the tariffs because there's nothing to talk about anymore. And all you're going to have is the focus where Pierre has remained this whole time.
Affordability.
On affordability.
And crime. Let's not forget crime, because that's a huge issue right now in Canada.
It is. And that was the other big pillar, was affordability next to Donald Trump in that Abacus poll. So that's probably going to shift. Tariff focus is going to go down, and then everyone's probably going to start listening to affordability a bit more.
And remember, there's 3.5 weeks left of this campaign.
Right.
So
this is going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out. And this is going to be a huge momentum shift, because when you've built your entire campaign around this ballot box question,
and now that question's gone.
Well, they're going to try and keep it there. You just watch.
Oh, I know they will, but
they're going to try and keep it there. The mainstream media is going to try and keep it there. But how are you going to invent things to talk about something that is no longer being talked about by the president down south? He's going to be busy with the rest of the world.
Well, and this is why this is important to say to the people in our lives that this is no longer an issue. Trump has given Canada a reprieve from these tariffs, and the auto tariffs, by and large, will not apply because they are exempt, since the parts are being made in the US and then modified in Canada and then back to the US, back to Canada, etc.
Well, and the Conservatives have made a very good argument here. They're saying, listen, the main strategy to deal with Trump in the US is what we've been telling you for 10 years. The problem is we haven't been in power for 10 years, so we haven't been able to do any of this stuff. One of the main things to jumpstart Canada's economy is to really get conventional energy into the limelight. Unshackle it and allow it to thrive in Canada, because the US is exporting tons and tons and tons, I should say billions and billions of barrels of LNG just by itself, because they have focused on that industry. And that only took them 10 years to go from bottom of the barrel, excuse the pun, to the world leader. Imagine what Canada could be if we actually were allowed, in terms of the legislation, to actually focus on that. And recall that Bill C-69 was deemed unconstitutional, yet it's still in place. So this is where I think, Pierre and the team are going to be proven right, I hope, in terms of their focus on affordability. They've tied it in to the Trump narrative, but they've focused and steadfast on affordability, because that is what they were hearing from Canadians for 2 years. That's what gained them the popularity in the polls. And this may be just what wins them the election.